level when life was demanding of you. The best and fastest of life, all the things you've been through. Just a word of advice that I hope that you use. An open mind is a weapon, you were born with the tools. I'm trying to provide a message only few will receive. See, the problem isn't the problem, it's the way it's perceived. Is you lying in the soil or you climbing a tree? See, the bottom isn't the bottom cause there's roots underneath. You should listen to my music cause it's truth that I speak. I promise you got the keys, watch the heights that you reach.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Ep.5's Voices of the Youth podcast. I am Brianna Embry-Banks, your host of today, and with me, I will allow them to each introduce themselves. Go ahead and say your names.
I'm Amanda.
I'm Ryan Pratt.
I'm Sienna. I'm Marlette.
And today, here with me today, I do have our youth activists in our community right here from York. We have Amanda and Ryan from Susquehannock High School who just graduated, Sienna from Central High School, and Arlette from York College of Pennsylvania. So our topic of the day we're going to be talking about is systematic racism in education. So this is a very fun topic for all of you.
I don't know about fun.
It's a hot topic.
It is a hot topic. So my first question, just to get your brains up and running, if you guys could share with our audience is, what was your story that you first started to realize you're made aware of systematic racism? So not just someone calling you the N slur or anything like that. When were you realizing that the system in itself, the school, was not created in your favor?
I wanted to make a black student union at our high school, and my principal said that if we had a black student union, then we'd also have to create a white student union. So obviously I knew like there was like something suspicious going on.
For me, I think it was like around the time of like the Black Lives Matter movement and everything like that. When we seen all like the protests going around with like Freddie Gray and like Trayvon Martin. When we seen all those protests, I was kind of like asking questions about like why everything was going on, and that's when my mom kind of explained to me that some systems were put in place to like keep black people oppressed and everything like that. So I think that was the first time that was made aware of like, not just racism but like systemic racism.
Sienna, Arlette?
I was like seventh grade in middle school. I've always been like somewhat good grades, so I was always in like the higher classes. And I asked my teacher like, why am I the only student of color in my class? And my teacher said, well, most kids, your skin color, your age aren't very smart, so feel special that you're here. And that's really well.
For me, I think I kind of always carried this awareness that there was like systemic racism and racism in general. My parents came here from Mexico, and I came here when I was 2 years old, so I kind of have a different perspective. Like that immigration and like being a Mexican person in the classroom I was always aware that I was different. But I think one of the biggest times and one of the biggest moments I kind of like began my activism career was when I was 14. And that was kind of around the time that Trump and he was beginning his campaign for him to become president. And I became aware that I was actually really different, that my immigration story was going to mark my whole life, like my education and just overall my whole life. So I think when I was 14, that's when I realized that I was an immigrant and what that meant. And then another layer to my experience is that I'm undocumented. So just being in a school, for some people who are undocumented immigrants or just immigrants in general, I think it brings a lot of fear because of xenophobia and just fear of police or fear just of living, because you never know what can happen. But I think that when I was 14, that was the first time that I realized what my life was going to be like as the person that I am.
No, it's lovely. I would say I got my realization a lot later in life. When I had gone about, as you all know, and even our viewers, in creating what is now known as Owning My Blackness, in order to get the club proportion of it approved, which would start off with after the RA event, I had to do a bunch of research into how big of a problem systemic racism in education was in order to get it approved. And that's when I had realized a lot of little things that I'd already experienced, but I may not have been able to put a title to it and started realizing I fell in that category. So very similar to Sienna, I had gone to a predominantly white institution and had noticed that every once in a while in a class I would struggle with, or I'd be in the lower level classes, that's where most of the minority students would be. In all of my honors and CP and AP courses, there might be like 1 or 2 of us. I never really had an answer for it. Or rare times during our school, they put lunch attention in the same room as the music room. So I did independent music where I taught myself piano. When I'd be in there practicing and they would have lunch attention, it was majority Black and Hispanic kids in the lunch attention room every single day, despite our school being predominantly white. So things like that could never truly put a title to it. Although I knew it was wrong, something was messed up, I didn't figure out what it was until much, much later. Okay. And then, as you all are activists here, what are some challenges you have experienced in trying to make change for our community?
I know for me and Amanda personally, I'm not really sure if everybody care about having friends, but I know during this time, I definitely cared about having friends and everything. And she'll probably speak more on like the actual challenges we face, but I know like a big challenge for me was like losing all the friends that I had worked so hard to get. Freshman year was when I first moved to Pennsylvania. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland, so when I moved up here, like I didn't know anybody. And freshman year was kind of like my first year like having friends in high school and everything like that. And then sophomore year is like kind of when we started standing up for like what was right regarding like the racism and everything like that. And that's when we started like losing a lot of friends. And it's still like a lot of people, like when I stopped texting them first because of everything that we was going through, like we just stopped talking. And I think it was just because it's such an uncomfortable topic, like talking about racism and everything like that. It's like when we lost all our friends and like our real friends stood up for us. I know that was like a major challenge for me, and I even like went home and my feelings about it to my mom, and my mom was like, you know, like none of this really matters, like what you're doing is like the big picture. So I think that was like a big challenge for me, trying to, you know, figure out what I was going to do about that.
Anyone else?
I think another challenge that we had was actually getting adults to listen to us. Like, even though they were like, we weren't adults yet, like we were still kids, like in high school. None of the adults like would actually listen to us and wanted to respect what we had to say. It was actually happening within the school. They just wanted to believe that like, oh, our little school's so perfect and that there's nothing going on. And like, really deep down, we're the ones in the school and we're the ones that are facing it.
Yeah, and also I think when I was in high school, adults pretended to listen to you. So like they would say something to you as of like supporting you in your face, but then behind closed doors and behind your back with other administrators or with other people that are high in the school, they wouldn't like stand up for you, or they would just kind of say the opposite of what they said to you. And I thought that that's something that I experienced in high school, and my school supported me. And at the time when I was in high school, I organized a protest with my friend at the time, and it seemed like our school wasn't actually willing to support us publicly. They weren't willing to put things on Facebook about the movement and about the things that we were doing, but they were really quick to use our names to kind of get attention for what we were doing, because we were doing such a good job, but they weren't actually willing to do it publicly, if that makes sense.
I'd say my first experience was my freshman year in high school, late 8th grade, and I started a petition for more Black history to be taught. And when I was ashamed of wear it like on social media and stuff, and a lot of my friends were like, "This is stupid. Like, it doesn't really matter anymore. Like, what is the point of this?" It's kind of alone, but like, it definitely helped a lot because things have changed. But yeah.
Yeah, really piggybacking, especially what Arlette, you were saying, and even some of you guys. Like I said, I'm pretty sure all of you guys were in my story, but just to catch up, the viewers, in the process of even creating OMB, the staff had actually started an entire rumor behind my back about what my intentions of doing versus what I was actually doing, where they were saying nasty things about me because they all thought I was going to do a protest and tarnish the school's name instead of actually talking to me about what I was trying to do, which I feel like even if I was trying to do a protest, it wasn't all that, but it's fine. But even past that, once we had gotten the club up and moving, and they, behind closed doors, would ask me to come into rooms and do research for them and adjust policies. But then once I would go out and do these things and say, hey, some things we are doing is not correct, they would alter my grades in the classroom. They would then question my safety in the classroom. Instead of dressing the professor or the other students, just place me in another class. They started removing funding from the club. They started taking opportunities away from me, not telling me about when I won awards, no longer funding for me to go to big conferences, after putting in writing that they were going to. And ultimately, the destruction or the downfall of what used to be the club at the school was a lot of things I started to face. And also, as we go through this podcast, one of us answers, similar to what I just did for you guys, if something sparks, it's very conversation based, so please feel free to chime in even before we move on to topics. But those are some of the big challenges that I was personally facing and trying to get so. And I don't know about you guys, and I feel like this often doesn't get talked about, especially as youth and activism, is the mental toll that it takes on you as an individual. Because I know a lot of times I've talked to people about the particular events in which they did for me, but at the same time as me as a student being away from home, even though I lived in New York, so like my house is only like 10, 12 minutes from the school, that environment, you are still very much alone in that school space. So I felt like I was fighting an entire system on my own, on top of I was going through my own health struggles at the time. So again, that systematic thing, so because of everything I was known for, the race girl on campus, it eventually got to the point where my teacher could no longer accept my hospital note as a reason to miss an exam. And then when I would take it up to the higher ups, they'd be like, well, maybe you should just drop the course. The required course that I need to graduate.
Is this in college or in high school?
This was in college.
Yeah.
Kind of to piggyback off of the mental health thing, I know me and Amanda, when we started in sophomore year, we've always been like all A, all B, like students, like very little B's, like one max. So I know by the end of the year, it's not even a big deal, but I had like 2 B's on my report card, and I was like going through it. I think one time like I didn't make distinguished honor roll, which is like the highest honor roll you can get, and it was like around that time, and I caught a minute, and I was crying about it. Like like looking back, it was so silly, but like, and she was like, it doesn't matter, like nobody reads it, but it just mattered to me because it was like we doing all of this, and I can't even like keep up with my grades, so it did take a big mental toll, something that we didn't really expect, and I think once we realized like we were in it on our own, and although we did have like a little bit of help from like our school officials and everything, like we were in on it on our own, and we kind of just like used each other to like pick ourselves up and like pick up on our slack and everything like that. So after that first year, we kind of got it together. But yeah, it definitely takes a toll.
Yeah, I agree. I think like you said, we don't talk about the mental toll that it takes for activists and student activists and youth who are empowered to do these very demanding and very challenging different type of demonstrations or whatever it is. But yeah, when I was 14, 15, 16, like till I graduated high school, I was very active. But then when I got into college, I experienced like such a very big culture shock because I had never been to PWI. My high school was predominantly POC students, so that's what I was used to. But I think that big culture shock in college just kind of led me to kind of not want to be involved in activism and caused for me to want to give up since it was something that I never experienced until now recently. I'm going to graduate soon and I'm finally getting back into like my groove and realizing that this is what I want to do. I think that it's really important to take those breaks if necessary, and focusing right now on my education was really big for me, and now that I feel a little bit more educated, finally getting back into what I really want to do is important. So breaks are important, and it's something that people should be wanting to do because it's going to be benefiting them.
Did you have anything to say on the mental health scene?
Right. I tried starting a club at my school. Started yard club. That was very much challenging. My school didn't like it at all. It took me like half a year just for you to come in and talk to me and my friends about it. Once you kind of talked about it, I'm not gonna say who or name, but like some people, they started like branching off the whole O&B thing and wanted to do their own thing, tried making different rules and all of that stuff. So that was a big challenge. So I got our diversity director at the time, and she kind of worked with us through it. But then it was like 2 weeks later, they went to the principal, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't know. Only my blackness sounds kind of harsh. I don't think people are gonna want to join that club." So they ended up changing it to a culture club, which wasn't the idea, but it's what worked. So
That's the exact same thing that happened to us. We told them we wanted a black student union. It was like, well, then that means we would need like a white student union too. So that's the exact same thing. That's crazy.
And these are all like York County schools.
Yes, all of the schools we are representing here today are right here in York County at both the college and high school level. These experiences are today. I don't know if you guys have also experienced this, but I also think it's a big thing when we talk about youth or student activism that becomes big, is that sometimes the people you are fighting for are not always supportive of the cause that you are maybe doing the benefit in their half. So for example, even with building Owning My Blackness, I was giving other students of colors major opportunities such as being on podcasts, being on television, newspapers, continuing to help them build a professional career while continuing to build a club. But a lot of them were like, oh, look, we kind of just wanted it to be for fun. Like, we don't want to make real change. We just kind of wanted to put our names under a club and be involved in something. Or, I don't really know about this anymore. This is becoming too much of a burden. And at some point, from my stance, I had to eventually realize that the work that I was doing for a bigger picture, and that even necessarily the people that I'm here to help may not be on board, but that doesn't change my mission. But I remember that was a huge struggle for me, and still creating and designing this was feeling like, what am I doing this for if the people I'm here to support aren't here to back me either? On top of still fighting the whole institution. So I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that either, where the people you are trying to uplift are not supportive of you.
I'm gonna have to think about it. Somebody else got something to say.
I think sometimes it feels like people aren't down for the cause anymore. Like people aren't willing to like really be in the streets. Like it's really important to organize and to like do the clubs, or like what you are doing is so important. And sometimes it just feels like people aren't down for like the cause anymore. People aren't willing to go protest. People aren't willing to speak out against something that's bad. And it sometimes just feels like I'm by myself. Sometimes people aren't even down to boycott things. Like for example, right now what is going on in Gaza, it just feels like people aren't willing to fully commit to real change. And people are just doing it for the social media attention, willing to put up things on social media about how they're supporting this or that, but then they're not actually willing to commit to the full change. And it's just a very frustrating thing to have to deal with some of my peers.
I think ours is kind of similar like what you said. Like people are just doing it just for like the social media presence. I know for us, a lot of our friends, they were like involved with what we were doing, whereas though like causing change and like being there and supporting us, but like they weren't there for like the nitty gritty hard stuff, like the getting pulled out of class every day, or like the getting in altercations with other students in the hallways, or just the simple things as such, like reporting incidents that was going on. Like they weren't trying to do that, but let some news people be there, or like somebody who would give us like coverage on anything. They would come for that part to show their face and be like, oh, like we're part of this too, but not wanting to be in like the actual hardships. That was a hard thing too.
Going off of that, they would like always come up to us and tell us like, oh, like what altercation that they had with a certain person, and then how when Ryan and I go solve it, rather than us like when we talked about it within our club and be like, okay, this is how you go about like situations like this. They wouldn't put it to action. They would just be like, oh, like the club's cool, like it's good for a resume, but then like they wouldn't do anything. Like we had multiple chances and opportunities to do, what is it, like
Culture Club?
No, like what do we do with the church?
Oh,
Volunteer.
like
We had like a whole bunch of
service.
volunteering and community service that we give opportunities for, but then no one would show up but me and Ryan. Like at the end of the day, like we're here to help you guys, and we wanted representation in our community, but then it'd just be me and Ryan who were labeled as like the troubled kids at our school, or like cancel culture queen and king at our school. Like it wouldn't be any of us.
Right. Okay. Did you have anything to add on to that? Okay. Beautiful. So my next thing I wanted to talk about is I actually want to take a moment, and because I realize that a lot of people, I'm familiar with all of you guys' point of views and stories. If you guys could take a minute and tell the audience where you are coming from, like what part of York, and what did you face from to make you an activist today?
What part of York are we from? Like Southern York? Southern York County? That's what our school district is called, Southern York County. Y'all seeing this? Hey y'all.
Are we friends?
Yeah, Southern York. That's where we're from. For us, it was like a lot of racism that was going on. We started our freshman year in hybrid schedule, so it was like we were on computers for half of the week and then in school, and it was kind of split in half. So me and Amanda, did we have the same day?
Yes.
We did have the same.
That's
Cooking
my
class.
food class.
Yes, we met in cooking class. We had the same day, and then it wasn't like a lot of racism. If it was kind of like online and older thing, and that was just something that we just really didn't pay attention to. But by sophomore year, that's when everybody came back together, and we were all in school together, and that's when like everybody started becoming racism. And then from then on, we was just kind of like being on the front lines, like canceling people, arguing with people.
But when we
going to the office.
Racist, it wasn't like, oh, like you're black, like it was people saying the N word to our face, people calling us monkeys, making monkey noises, talking about swastikas, wearing swastika masks,
Yeah. Confederate
talking about
slaves,
slaves,
sending KKK memes. So it's like it's crazy.
Black
It's
people
crazy.
in your school.
And I honestly think that if we didn't have like the pictures to back it up, and I didn't go through it, like, I truly would think that we was lying about everything. But it did happen. It happened. We're here to tell the story.
You too?
So I'm from like North York area. Yeah, I've been here for like, is it 4 years now? 4, almost 5. Let's say like at first, I guess realization and issue I faced was besides the whole club thing, I wanted to throw a diversity celebration and whatsoever, but the school made a big deal out of it. It was supposed to happen in January and didn't happen until May. They put me at a class-wide. I had to talk to the superintendent, all 5 of our principals. My school was really big. That'd be like 2-hour conversations. Like I'd have to catch up on work. They're like, okay, well, what do you want to do? Like, are we focusing on a certain topic? Let's not talk about racism. This is supposed to be an uplifting event. Like, okay. So that happened, and then once we actually got the diversity celebration up and running, it was a success. We had a lot of tables and stands. We had food. We had a powder puff game. They said the next day. It took them 2 years to plan it. They did their best to try to get everyone there, and they didn't give me and the girls who helped me plan it any credit. So, yeah, that was a bummer.
So I kind of talked a little bit about my story, but I went to school here in New York City, and I graduated from there. And at the time, it was the year 2020, and I think it was like COVID. Yeah, COVID at the time, and also BLM was happening at the time. And that's when me and my friend, we had organized, but I got a lot of my, I learned a lot about organizing protests and mobilizing through the activism in my previous years. When I was 14, that's when I realized who I was, and I joined an organization called CASA here in New York. And this organization fights for immigrant rights and Latino rights and overall different rights, human rights. And by going to a lot of the protests in DC and seeing some of the other activists, I was able to learn what protest looks like, what demonstration can achieve, and through that I was able to put all of that into the protests that I organized here in New York City, and it was really successful. And I think that was also a jumpstart as to what I wanted to do and who I wanted to become. But then when I graduated high school, I attended York College, and that's where I am still there today. And I'm still doing a lot of activism and pushing for a lot of things to be changed in the school. There's not a lot of awareness for undocumented students or immigrant students or students that are international. They just get kind of forgotten. And there's no website. Well, there's a York College website, but on the website there's no information for undocumented students or students who have DACA, which is a different type of permit. And so I've been fighting for the school to acknowledge and make sure that the school community and overall community is aware that there are students there who are undocumented, who have DACA, and who are, willing and getting an education, and who need to be seen because their presence is important. So that's kind of what I do, and I'm happy to be here and getting to know you guys. I know you guys already though I think we've met before.
So, just to make a connection for everybody here, because we love being the glue. So, in the process of building Owning My Blackness, Arlette here was another really big student activist on campus. Like you know them people.
I know
So-
you guys. It was
so-
it's been years.
So when I was working with you guys, she was kind of on the sidelines a little bit. Like she would like hear me rant or something real
Yeah.
quick, and she'd be like, "Well, who are these kids y'all working with?" So she like knows a lot about y'all, but I don't know if she's ever directly met
was
you
like, I
guys.
Were you on a Zoom? I think it was
Yeah,
like
I
a
think
big
it was
Zoom
Zoom,
call.
something
I
like
think you
that.
did. We met.
But like reading about what you guys were doing, and I remember reading like the things that was happening to you guys at the time, and you would tell me that they would be getting close some horrible things, and like the monkey noises was like I was like,
Yeah.
wow, like this is an actual.
They still deny it to this day too.
Oh, I kept documents.
They still.
No, yeah,
we got
I mean, we got documents,
We got
but they didn't go
documents.
to like the state or anything.
And when I found out, I told my community, I was like, we need to know. Well, everyone should be aware of what is happening, like in the backyard of our York County. Because
Right.
It's very close to home.
Must say I know not everybody's bold as I am, but I live in my truth.
Yeah.
In the sense of, as much as I do recognize what had gone on with me and York College, is not unique and is not the full part of the institution itself, but this is a much bigger problem as I continue to research, not only in York, not even just in PA, not even the nation, but across the world, as we continue to discuss the hot topic of racism and not wanting to truly make change, as I would say. Very similar to many of your stories. Not only was I fighting them to make change, but I had snowballed into mini local success. So what do I mean by that? Within the first year of launching Owning My Blackness, from the time I did the RA event to now the official club, where I launched it at the college, at York Suburban High School, and then mentored you guys all at the same time. I was being pulled back and forth for television interviews, podcast interviews, magazine features, asking me to go speak at conferences, asking me to go to different schools, sit into them, help them rewrite policies. It's also keep in mind I did all this for free for the love and the help for the culture. But yeah, that's why I told y'all, that's why I told Amanda, don't be slave to them people no more. Don't be like me, be better. Make them give you your check. She remember that conversation. But what I had found is a lot what you guys are saying is people love to slide my name on websites and articles and my picture on the front of things. But when I would go and work with the same organizations to make the change they wanted to scream to the public they were doing, nobody wanted to do it. So I had fought for months before I eventually was like, y'all wasting my time, with the college of bringing stacks of research on how they handle discipline, the conduct of going through, essentially, you know, many of our colleges do it. Unlike in high school, when you get in trouble, you go to the principal and they give you a sanction. It's very similar to court. You go, you plead your case in front of your peers, and they decide where you go from. So I brought in a whole thing of how we are currently doing things is just, how do I say this, more harshly affecting our students of color than any other demographic. And they sat there in my face and was like, great, cool, took notes, we love this, let me collect this. Never did anything about it. I went similar to how you were talking about the website. And I'd go in and talk about, okay, how we give out scholarships right now is severely harming our students of color. They are not getting the funding we receive despite the numbers not making sense, what we have available. What are our options to do here? Work for months. Again, people seem very on board, very cool to my face, but yet there was nothing coming. We talked about how the numbers of students of colors and admissions were low. And that's when I would bring you guys in, remember, for Black Out for Black Lives, and I said I would send a bus to your college that would come pick you guys up, or get your own rides and send out permission slips, all that jazz. Literally, when I talk about the backyard of the college, as in the administration's office is right here, this is the event, this is the president's office, they all knew it was coming, everyone's talking about let's get students of color here on campus, yet nobody came, and I brought at least 20 plus students of color from across our county to our school. Nobody came out. So when we talk about this, like, fight for change, I very much related you guys in the aspect that I was the poster child for change, but nobody actually wanted to make the change behind closed doors. And some people are still using my face to this day. Cough, cough.
Yeah, on the website.
We was looking for banners actually as we just drove past when we was going to Duncan. We was looking for banners like we bet not see our face out there.
They updated them
Bet not see
finally.
her.
I haven't checked. They recently found a new website, and I don't know if you're on it, but
Oh, I don't
have
know if
to
I'm
do a
on the
little
website.
search
I do know that my face was sent out to all the accepted students, despite
Bye.
no. When I tell you, weeks after I just had my latest incident with them,
Oh.
post graduating, post shutting down the thing, like weeks after we had another one, my face was sent out. We were okay. Like I said, poster child for the cause, and nobody wants to work with me. And I'm still 100%. Anybody listening out there, I don't care if we have shed light in your institution. We are happy. We are here to make change. Our youth here, we are hungry. We're ready to work. But some of us gotta be ready to do work.
Right.
Ryan said I'm tired.
Yeah, I'm backed out.
I'm tapped out. Okay, my next question for you guys is: some of you still being youth in our area, and some of us right outside it. What do you think needs to be done to set up our Black and brown youth, the next generation, up for success? Or what is something you're going to prep them for that you wish somebody would have told you in order to make you successful?
Not everybody is your friend. Like, although they may seem like they on your side through thick and thin, they're gonna be here for you no matter what. Like, it's the whole world against you. Like, gonna be standing there with you. That like, it's not true. Like, no matter what, it's not true. Like, and of course, like, not saying that there won't be anybody who will be on your side, but there's only gonna be a select few opposed to the people who are, you know, talking the talk and not walking the walk. So.
And you three of you?
Keep pushing forward. Like, even though like everyone's saying like something about you or like what you're doing is not enough, like you're adding that 1% every day to like at the end of the day, like you're putting that forward, and like that's what's important to you, and it doesn't have to be important to everybody. But if you're putting in that work, then it's gonna work out in the end.
Honestly, like our generation, we're not scared to be activists and stuff, but there's always room for more. So don't be scared to put yourself out there. Like for the right cause, just do it.
I think thinking about the next generation of youth, I think there should be a lot of funding going into schools. I don't think that children are getting the adequate education that they deserve. I think especially here in New York City, one of the biggest schools, William Penn, isn't getting as much funding as I think it should be getting. And we definitely, where was I going with this? Hold up. I just think that education is power, and when people are educated, when schools are being funded, I think that that's the pathway, and that's kind of us passing down the, like people like to say, the torch. But I think with that education on their hand and the passing of the torch, I think that's where education comes in, the role of education. And I think that these schools need to be getting funded because, like I said, education is such a powerful thing for students to like be able to realize some of these systemic racism issues that we were talking about. So.
Yeah, I'd say when I think about what needs to be done for our Black and brown youth success, I also agree the funding in education. I would say not only providing the funds, but also making sure those funds are going adequate ways and that the training is being done. Because we are finding even those schools with the necessary funding, they are still disproportionately, as mentioned multiple times here, failing our Black and brown youth, to say so the least. That they are not still, even within the same building, getting the same quality of education between their Black, brown, and white students. And I feel like there's no way we can expect better from our community if we don't start demanding better, in a sense. For all those listening, I think parents need to step up and be a more active role in advocating for their youth if we want to set them up for success. I feel like a lot of times we forget that our community holds so much power when it comes to the education system. As taxpayers, as people who live in the community, get out to the school board meetings. Don't just leave your students voicing by themselves and no one to back them up. In a sense, there is so much power in numbers because essentially that is equivalent to another financial means of money. When not only that, we need more advocates within the school buildings themselves. So when you have students, for example, like Sienna, Amanda, and Ryan, who want to start clubs, who want to start events, that they're not being pulled out of class for hours just for someone else to take credit for their work and or completely change their idea. Or ultimately pull them out for hours and weeks on end just to not do what they wasted their time to do.
Yeah.
all in all, and I think my final tip for them would be for any Black and brown youth who are listening into here, I'd say take more control of your own life. In a sense, as we all know, we cannot sit around and expect to wait for these systems or these adults or these leaders to come and make it for you. Unfortunately, we need way more Black and brown youth to get that grit and get that determination on their own to be able to teach themselves the basic skills they need to read and write, to get the necessary skill sets that they need to hold their own ground, because essentially whether you look for it or not, trouble is on its way.
Kind of piggyback off of that too, like she was saying, like if you feel like you need to make a change, make that change. I think me and Amanda have done more events and made more change, like by ourselves rather than like being connected to the school. Like things that was outside of the school, they had like a greater impact than rather than just our multicultural club or just like the little tiny events that we have. So make that change. Like if you feel like it needs to be made, make it, whether you got help or not.
On that note, I would like to personally say thank you for all of you guys for continuing to trust in me and my ideas and coming out to all the crazy events that I pull you guys into last minute and make you guys come because I love you and you love me. But welcome back, and we'd like to thank you guys for coming to another episode of APJ Foundation's Voices of the Youth podcast, and we hope you enjoyed our conversation on systematic racism in education. And if you guys would say, if anybody would like to follow more on your stories, do any of you have any social media sites you'd like to shout out, or any organizations you're affiliated with you want to tell people who can follow on? If you don't know.
What?
I think she's asking for social media.
You can either say organizations you're affiliated with, or if you want anybody to follow you on social media. So you can do NAACP, OMB, any of that.
Well, I'm going to the illustrious North Carolina A&T
Oh,
Aggie
wow.
Pride. So in chat, if y'all out here follow me, I'm RYXN__P. Aggie Pride. That's all I got to say.
Where they following you at, Ryan?
On Instagram, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Instagram.
Anybody else? Any organizations or social medias you'd like to shout out?
Well, I'm part of Sueño Latino at YCP. It's a really good organization for Latino students on campus. So shout out to Sueño Latino. I'm not sure what the ad is, but it's probably Sueño Latino _YCP. So keep up with the cool things we do. Thank you.
You can keep up with more of Sienna, myself, and even Amanda and Ryan outside of Ryan's personal Instagram with Owning My Blackness on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and also Owning My Blackness Consulting. Honestly, you search that on any social media, we will pop up. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Hey guys, this is Brianna Embry Banks tuning back in to say if you'd like to hear more of Voices of the YC Youth podcast from the APJ Foundation, or just to keep up more with what the foundation does, you can get more information and watch more episodes at www.apjfoundation.org, or you can follow us on Facebook, APJ Foundation, or on YouTube, where you can also look up Voices of the Youth podcast.
Every level in life we're demanding of you. The best professors of life are the things you've been through. Just a word of advice that I hope that you use. An open mind is a weapon, you were born with the tools. I'm trying to provide a message only few